The stars are shifting and the planetary alignment is less than a week away. Hopefully, good luck to editing me. You got this. Do your best. But that aside, the trailer, am I right? It's out. It's been out. We're told that it's the official trailer, but there was a lot of footage from previous seasons. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about it. I do kind of feel like it disrupted my hype at times, but I'm sure that it'll all make sense once we start looking at the pieces and piecing them together. But before we officially get started, I do want to give a disclaimer that while I have not seen episode 1, I have seen the coverage from people who attended Comic-Con. And just like Light, I have been exposed to it and I cannot unsee it. So the things that I've learned will be trickling in and contextualizing some of the things that we're seeing in the trailer. That being said, I am of the opinion that until I have actually seen the episode with my own two eyes, I don't actually understand what's happening. Because we could all be looking at the exact same thing and take away something entirely different. So there's that. But again, I have heard coverage from episode 1. I will be touching upon those things. So definitely proceed at your own discretion. And also, unlike season 6, and even 4 and 5, we don't have the episode titles. We only know that the first episode will be titled Death Alive, and at some point there will be an episode titled True Hearts, although we don't know which episode that'll be. Either way, I will try to organize the clips and try to group things that look like they could be happening at the same time and theorize about what could be happening. Okay, so we're going to begin with what we know will come first, which is our characters taking in the destruction of Katolis. We begin with Callum, who flew from the Moon Nexus to Katolis on his own. We then see Anya, Ezra, Corvus, Sim, and Bate arriving on the twin-tailed Inferno Tooth Tigers, which I recently stumbled upon Callum's spellbook, and I guess for shorthand, they're also just called Hot Cats. So the wedding attendees arrive on the Hot Cats, and Corvus is clearly relieved to see Soren. I want to know exactly what happens here, okay? This ship took sail already, right? And I feel like it's official, but I definitely want it to be explicitly said because I have been waiting for this since October of 2022, okay? My fingers are crossed, and I want it in my face, okay? I'm tired. I just need something new. Anyway, this will also be paired with one of the first look images, and I am so ready to see Ezra, okay? I'm just gonna say it now. I support Ezra's wrongs. Our next batch of clips comes with Ezra taking in the destroyed throne room with the miraculous chair with plot armor, and that aside, this is where some of the Comic-Con spoilers come in. We are told that Ezra has a vision of sorts, but if we dive into memory, we could have figured that this is not a real moment in history because Sarai is a queen, okay? I will not tolerate any disrespect sent her way, so I need you guys to know that that woman had her own chair, okay? I need the canon to stop disrespecting her, and no, Harold, I have not forgotten the fact that you did not include the queen in a very important diplomatic meeting. Anyway, this clip makes sense as a projection of Ezra's mind because Sarai died when he was an infant, and while she definitely had a throne beside Harold, it was removed as soon as she died, and it kind of seems like that's how Callum found out before Harold officially told him. So Ezra would never have seen the throne room have 2 chairs. So I imagine that this is the only way that he can imagine her just standing beside Harold, but not how the surroundings would look different to reflect her presence. At least that's my interpretation of things. Our next set of clips are that of the drag gang taking residence at the Banther Lodge, and I imagine this shot is them flying there. We'll also see them have a council meeting there, which by the way, Anya, girl, you are a queen, and this is no summit of the Pentarchy. Why did you leave your crown guard behind? But I'm not gonna dwell on those things. I just wanted to point them out. And also, I hope that Rayla was in fact left out of this meeting and is not like out of frame because Rayla simply does not deserve a spot there, okay? I will defend Barrier sitting on the council before you ever hear me say that Rayla needs to be a part of it, okay? Just leave that girl out and let her go home. But anyway, I'm not sure if this discussion with Anya will take place before or after the council meeting, but I do think that she will provide the obsidian against the White Walkers, so this could be her proposing something. We then move on to the bane of my existence. We see Callum doing what he always does, which is reassure Rayla and tell her that he would do anything for her. This personally does not bode well, not only because of the implication that he will use dark magic for her, but also because he already bailed her out of doing something questionable related to Runnan in season 5. And then in season 6, he freed him without thinking about how that could affect his immediate surroundings. So I do worry that maybe this could be related to him again. So maybe possibly the next group of clips could be Rayla getting him out. I mean, that definitely doesn't have to be the case, but I do think that it's possible that these clips are from the same scene because they do have a similar color scheme and it kind of looks like dawn, or it could be sunset. But then again, if they're escaping, why wouldn't they just do that at night? So maybe that's not what's happening, but I haven't seen the first episode, so it's all for a game for me, and I'm gonna stick to this idea for now. Rayla looks defensive here, and Soren is clearly standing before the bridge, so maybe he is the one who notices, or he is the one standing guard at the time. This altercation will call Ezran's attention, and here we have him coming through. He looks pissed. If this is really what's happening, I really hope that this is not a Queen Janai situation where she makes one choice and then conveniently changes her mind in the next scene. I really want Ezran to take himself and his authority seriously, even if that means Rayla's banishment from Katolis. I don't know if that's just wishful thinking on my part, or maybe I'm just really cruel, but I can live with it. But it is hinted that Callum, Rayla, and Runnan will go their own separate ways, so maybe Callum and Rayla will somehow disregard Ezran to free Runnan. Soren is gonna catch drift of it and enforce the king's will. Ezran will get a word of the commotion. Callum, Rayla, and Runnan will take their leave to the Silvergrove, and Ezran will be left alone to deal with the kingdom. Luckily, Anya will be by his side, and maybe she'll give him some good advice. And I'm gonna say it now, Ezran and Anya shippers, if the plot is going where I think it's going, maybe this ship could sail, okay? I'll let you know where I stand on that after I watch season 7. But let us move on to our dark trio. Here we have what is apparently a human Aaravos. I love it. He has dark mage vibes. And from the Comic-Con spoilers, we know that they are searching for a moon primal stone and will end up going to the Garden of Innocence. And we are learning this name for the first time, but we have seen it in a way in the Puzzle House graphic novel, where Kapar left Claudia a map to find the unicorns. And in my last video, I speculated that the Garden of Innocence could be somewhere between the Banther Lodge and the Moon Nexus, and I'm even more sure of it now because look at this bridge on the unicorn map, okay? Sadia's map is naturally countrywide, and this is the local one, so we don't have a bridge on such a large scale. But in all the promotion, I feel like we're seeing a lot of this bridge at the Banther Lodge, and I think it might also be the only bridge that we know of. So yeah, I think the Garden of Innocence is somewhere northeast of the castle around the Banther Lodge. And I think we're seeing this trio here already because of this creature that we see Aaravos releasing. But also, this creature looks like star magic because of the rainbow, which we kind of associate with the star primal. And to those who may be hearing it for the first time, the Garden of Innocence is also naturally alluding to the Star Primal, not only because that's where the unicorns are found, but because it seems to be the case that some star magic is only visible to those with a pure heart. Purity and innocence are intertwined here, and I do wonder what the ingredient they're searching for will be. I hope it's not the Dream Warden. In my last video, I also chatted about the fact that I wasn't sure if the Dream Warden was star magic or moon magic. I'm leaning towards the stars, but I'm not sure. But we're gonna keep it moving. Next up, we then have our Silvergrove batch of clips. It looks like Rayla will return home, and it only makes sense because Runnan made Ithari a promise to return his heart to him, and if Ithari has to live without his love for any longer, my heart will be turned to shreds, okay? But when I last spoke of the first look images, I wasn't sure of what this ritual would be, but I think I hear the moon whispering that this ritual is a test to see how Rayla reacts to seeing the consequences of her actions. While she did not wield her blades to kill anyone, her actions did cause the death of the Moonshadow assassins. She does in fact have blood on her hands, and while you can most definitely argue that it was for the greater good of Sadia, her actions had real consequences for those in the Silvergrove. Ithari could not have been the only one waiting for an assassin to return. There were 4 other elves who died. The Moonshadow Elves value tranquility in their community. I feel like those who have been ghosted are people who not only bring shame to the community, like Kimdale, who is actively a menace, and T. Adrian and Lane, who presumably broke their oath. Now, that may have been a misunderstanding due to a lack of information, but it stands that all signs pointed to them abandoning their posts, breaking their sacred oath as dragon guards, and those actions led to the kidnapping of the egg, which they were sworn to protect. I don't fully recall Taiwan's banishment, but they seem to have been ghosted because their negligence caused harm to the crops or something along those lines. Please don't quote me on that. But basically, their actions had some tangible effects on the community, and that is why they were banished. And when it comes to Redfeather, we don't know what she did, and while she says that she doesn't regret it, Rayla does mention that she looks old in a way that people look when something other than time got to them. So that is all to say. Ghosting is not something that is done lightly, okay? The people who have been ghosted were banished for a reason, presumably because they have caused some tangible harm to the community or the country at large. And yeah, I'm sorry. I know that I've said all that before, but this is my kin, okay? I will defend the Moonshadow Elves until I have no hair left to braid on my head. And honestly, I kind of feel like they're misunderstood. But I guess that's just the nature of the moon. Anyway, if Rayla wants to be welcomed home, she will need to face the consequences of her actions. Like, to see the brilliance of a full moon, we first have to emerge from the shadows. So Rayla just has to look at hers head on. In the same vein, Callum will also have to go through a similar process. Callum is gonna be wherever Rayla is, and he is also ghosted by those from the Silvergrove because they previously entered together. And at the time that Callum faces his shadows, he will naturally see himself in the dark because of Aaravos. This image is actually something that we've seen before. It's when Aaravos possesses him in season 4, but this also looks like new footage because his eyes look different. Like they're like full of static or like a meteor shower even. I don't know, but it does look different. He was presumably filled with starlight, but it does come with the caveat that he will be consumed by darkness and corruption if he does it again. And I think the ritual may have helped, but I am of the opinion that it was a band-aid fix. What Callum actually needs is to perform a ritual of purification, and that requires sun magic. Although water cleanses and can also purify, and we do know that they will seek Akiyu, but it kind of seems like that's not going to work out. Either way, that's probably something different. But back to these two clips where Callum is facing his shadow, I'm not sure what can be done about his fear of Aaravos controlling him unless he literally loses a hand. But the next big fear comes with his continued dance with dark magic. And this is where we hear him say, however dangerous, however vile. And that's just one of the questions that we've been grappling with for the past 3 seasons. If you are a good person doing the right thing, are you also doing something vile to protect the people that you love? Is that a contradiction, or is there room for those two things to exist side by side? At least I think that's the question. I'm not sure if he will get unghosted, but Callum's shadow will absolutely come back around later in the season, since we do know that he would do anything for Rayla. I kind of feel like I hear my heart breaking, but we can save that for later because we're still only on the first third of the season. On the other side of Sadia, we have best boy Terri, and we see him running through the forest, and I am so excited to get this part in the story where Terri finally gets an epiphany about the people who surround him. And from the depths of my heart, I believe at some point after they get the ingredient to make the Moon Primal Stone, he will run out of the Garden of Innocence to warn the protagonists about Aaravos' plan. And to reiterate the point, we see this clip as we hear Callum talk about good people doing courageous things. And if I have faith that anyone is gonna do the right thing this season, I'm standing firmly behind Terri. Okay? That is how we're gonna get to this scene at the Moon Nexus where Claudia is performing a spell beside human Aaravos. We then zoom out to see the spell taking effect, and there are so many things to note, but I know you know where you are, and we are absolutely gonna start with the moon, okay? We have a 3rd quarter moon, and so this could be a few days after Aaravos was freed, which took place during a full moon. Now, what we know about this beautiful moon nexus is that at the height of the full moon, it can become a portal to a place between life and death, and it has been used for people to find closure, although that was very rare. We saw Rayla attempt to do that in Through the Moon, but we know that it's equally true with the dead. Those who happen to find themselves in the in-between can also reach a point of closure and move on from that place. We have seen it done with the Moonshadow Assassins and then with Rayla's parents in season 6. But as you can see, this is not a full moon, okay? That means that the spell being performed here is not Morsa Aperta, a door to death. When the moon is waning, it is after the full moon, so spells to be done around this time would be about release. We are witnessing Claudia let out spirits from the portal. It is no longer a door from life to death, but a door from death to life. And as this is happening, we hear Claudia say spirales, okay? Humans, elves, mages, and grumpy baitlings, we are officially witnessing the descent into chaos, okay? Beautiful. I love the moon. Look at those ripples become waves. Epic. Moving on from that, we see none other than Lujane on the ground, and that is criminal, okay? What did that woman ever do but mind her goddamn business, okay? Either way, she's the protector of the moon nexus, and she would naturally try to prevent Claudia from accessing it at all costs. I think we could be witnessing her death, or actually, I'm gonna be optimistic and say that she's just injured. The resolution is not great here, but I do think that that's Anya, and we of course see Alan, who must have just witnessed his love be hurt before his eyes, and this is what makes me think that Terri went back to get backup because he is running in on this spell along with Soren, but not only are they too late, they are outmatched, okay? While Claudia performs the spell to unleash the spirits of the dead, it looks like Aaravos is performing a time warping spell. We know that an element of star magic is time. And when we see this clip, we see the beam of light rising up as the water ripples, but Soren and Terri look frozen mid-run, so I think he could be freezing them in time. We then see creatures emerging from the water. The thing that you have to keep in mind about this portal and the people and the beings who are here are that they are restless souls, okay? For one reason or another, they cannot move on to whatever lies beyond death for them. Their souls are in one way or another still tethered to the realm of life. We do hear from Comic-Con that Aaravos specified that the people who are in the in-between are people who have died with trauma. After a few beasts and someone with wings emerge, we then see a more mysterious figure, and it's very hard to make out who this person may be, but they are riding a drake, and we see that they either took Aaravos' staff or he gave it to them. I've seen a few people suggest that it could be Seard, and I definitely see it. This figure has long hair with the middle part. The figures on his chest look like the circle and chain that Seard was wearing at the time of his death. And we also know that Aaravos has given Seard a staff as a gift to him before, so we could be seeing that replay now that he's emerged from death. If I were to add anything to this train of thought, I definitely say that Seard's death came at the breath of Sol Rayllum. I feel like if he were to rise again, his mission would probably be to find Sol Rayllum, who is now dead, or fly to Laurelion to see what happened to it, because Sol Rayllum did threaten to reduce it to ash, and Seard met that fate before it happened. So I think that that would be his first priority, and that is candidate number 1, and I do think that's who it actually is. But there was something else that emerged from the void of my mind when I first saw this. I immediately thought it could be Laurelion, okay? I have absolutely nothing to back this up. It was just where my mind went. But if Laurelion met their fate at the hands of the Nova Blade and they considered themselves immortal, that would in fact be very traumatic. And someone who expected to live eons would most definitely have a hard time moving on from the in-between. That being said, we are told that the Nova Blade cannot truly kill a Star Touch elf, so that is a pretty big wrench in that theory. But I live my life perpetually wearing Star Touch lenses, okay? So, while that does seem like a contradiction, well, that's exactly what it is. There's a contradiction around what happened with Laurelion. The poem of the death of the immortal reads, and though undying took last breath, immortal Laurelion was no more. Wide as the star's heart it pierced, ivory draconic brought forth death's bite, known ever forth as Nova Blade. So, making someone no more is arguably unclear, but it's actually not, considering the fact that the title is literally called The Death of the Immortal, okay? Now, where the contradiction comes in is with the Celestial Elves, because the Elder says that killing one of the Great Ones is impossible. The Nova Blade can destroy their mortal vessel, but they will return to the heavens, awaiting for the alignment of stars to manifest in Sadia again. So the question here now is, which source are we gonna trust? And I hear some grumpy beatlings saying, immediately, That's not even a question, okay? The celestial elves are the closest thing that exists to the star primal. Clearly, that is the more credible source. And I would be inclined to agree, except for the fact that we don't actually know where this information is coming from. Like, yes, the elder, but where did he learn that, okay? And this is where I must kindly request that you also put on your Star Touch lenses, because I found a theory that I like. So I'm about to start pulling on silk until I've created a tapestry, okay? It's kind of criminal that we went to the Star Scraper but actually learned so little, okay? Why did we not see a library or, like, their way of record keeping? That is criminal. I am offended. Personally, somebody did that to slight me. And also, did anyone else notice the fact that there was a staff missing and nobody mentioned it? I have questions. The point is, the era of the first elves when they roamed Sadia ended 2,000 years ago. So the celestial elves presumably have not had actual contact with the stars for a really long time. I need to know where the elder got this information. The thing that's coming to mind is one of Virrow's videos where he also brings up this conversation about unreliable narrators being one of the things that makes the Dragon Prince really interesting. And a more recent example of this coming to mind is the fact that Astrid introduces him by saying that the Elder is the one who sees all, but we know that he is in fact not time blind, and if he sees all, why didn't he immediately know that the Chosen Two had arrived? So what we know the Elder knows is that the Timeblind foretold that the warrior and the mage would melt the threat and that they would adorn them with the heavens and whatnot, but this information is coming from the Timeblind. This is a prophecy. And the thing about prophecy is that it's not a very reliable source of information. Now, there is truth to it, and I love it, but prophecy is ripe for misunderstandings. That is its nature. Now, on the other hand, our only other source on Laurelion comes from Lux Aurea. We don't know who wrote the poem, and as a matter of fact, we don't even know the complete poem. And this is the second video in a row where I mentioned that, so maybe there's a web that I'm actually grasping onto here. And also, the last time that I theorized on Laurelion was for my red necklace video, and I proposed the possibility that the necklace belonged to whoever pierced them through the hearts. And I know that I'm jumping ahead, but we are finally seeing that necklace in action, and I have to say that that is actually so incredible, okay? I absolutely love this for Claudia. I can't wait to see it. Burn your enemies to the ground. Or don't, okay? Reconsider is always an option. But anyway, I recently shared a theory that the world of Sadia is on a cyclic timeline, and I didn't mention Laurelion last time because I just didn't have enough information, but I'm starting to see how the stars connect now. One of the canon events for the timelines must be the sun betraying the stars, causing the death of the immortal. In this current era, the sun that betrayed the stars refers to Sol Raygon betraying Leola, and by extension Aaravos, but perhaps in the previous timeline, during the era of the first elves, the sun that betrayed the stars was a Sunfire elf who pierced Laurelion through the heart, and that is why this record is found in Lux Aurea. The Sunfire Elves are primarily a warrior civilization. We have to question why it is that certain records are found in certain places and not others. The only part that doesn't fit in with this theory is the fact that the Elder says that the Nova Blade cannot eternally kill a Star Touch Elf because they would eventually return with the stars align. But what if the stars are currently aligning and Laurelion is returning once more, okay? They are manifesting in Sadia, not because they are descending from the heavens, but because the portal to death has been opened. This could be the setup for Arc 3. So ultimately, I think we can trust both the poem and the Elder, but if there's gonna be a misunderstanding somewhere, my bets are on the people who deal with prophecy. So yeah, I really like the idea that we could be seeing Laurelion. This figure is probably not them, but I do still think we could see them. But back to planting our feet on the ground, we have to remind ourselves of the enemy right before us, which is Aaravos. And what Aaravos probably wants is to be with Leola, but because that was taken from him, I think what he wants now is chaos, okay? At the time that the trailer for Season 6 was released, the description attached to it read, "The war against the cosmic order begins." My ongoing theory is that Aaravos wants the Star Touch Elves to fall and everything that they stand for, okay? And we know that what they stand for is the cosmic order. So Aaravos is gonna give them the very thing that they were supposedly trying to prevent by executing Leola. Forget a long, slow downward spiral to chaos. He is gonna expedite it. I love it. And I think he'll probably die at the end. His mission was simply to deal irreversible damage to the cosmic order. And if what is done cannot be undone was a situation, it would be this one, okay? Welcoming death into the land of the living. He is still dying with Leola, but it's gonna be on his own terms. But back to the trailer, we then see the Drake trying to stomp on Soren. And is it the angle or is the figure who's riding it no longer on board? Either way, I think the unleashing of the dead will be enough of a distraction for Aaravos and Claudia to get away. Our next set of clips are of Callum and Claudia having a showdown in Akiyu's cave, and the big questions are naturally what is happening, what is Claudia doing in Akiyu's cave, and why does the Dragang need to visit as well? There aren't many ideas that come to mind, but Akiyu does have a primal stone on her staff, so Aaravos could want that. And also, Akiyu could also be considered an inconvenient source of information. I'm not really sure what Callum and Rayla are doing there, but I'm just gonna say that it's taking place after a rendezvous with Ezran and Anya, or maybe he just sent him a crow to inform him of what happened with Lujane. So they could be going to Akiyu to ask for some sort of help. And this could be when we hear Callum saying that Aaravos has unleashed the spirits of the dead as a way to explain the situation to her. In the meantime, Ezran will suggest building up their defenses, and that is how we will have this scene with Anya, Ezran, Corvus, and Soren visiting a cave of crystals. My guess is that this is a cave system under Durin. I think it makes sense that a new character would show us a new location, and this is probably somewhere in Durin because it looks like this cave is where she gets the gems for her arrows. And this brings me to my question, which I've had since I saw season 6. Does Durin have a rune mage in their midst? Anyway, if I had to guess as to why this would exist in Durin, it's probably because we know that immediately after they acquired the heart of the Magma Titan, Harold takes Viren and his knights to their kingdom to announce the death of their queens and to deliver upon the promise of performing a spell to warm the land. Viren performed the spell in their capital, and it's possible that they recently discovered these reserves of crystals, although to be fair, crystals don't grow in a decade, but I do believe in the power of magic. Anyway, Ezran will have time to prepare for at least a few weeks or until the moon begins to wax. Our next set of clips will have us return to Katolis, specifically the Valley of the Graves, and I'm gonna take a wild guess at the order here, but maybe we could see this clip of Ezran Baden Sim atop Solrigam's skull first. Anya will then come to his defense with the explosive arrows. Aaravos will laugh in their face as the dead begin to surround them. And a big question here is, where's Soren and Corvus? And also, I know Ezran is a non-combatant, but he should really pick up a weapon. In a life or death situation, just stick him with the pointy end. And speaking of which, I think the reason why this orangish crystal is desirable for this battle is not necessarily because it will be effective against Aaravos, but because it could be effective for the dead. The moon reflects sun, as death reflects life. There's this one moment from season 5 where Rayla shot a moon arrow at a corrupted Banther, but the Banther did not immediately die. It just walked off much more sedated. Moon magic can affect the corruption coming from the Sunforge in a different way to the Earth Primal, so I'm definitely curious to know what happened there, but the point here is that the dead are coming from the Moon Nexus, okay? I think it makes sense that the Sun Primal could deal the dead some damage that maybe normal weapons can't do. But anyway, let's come back to the clips at the Valley of the Graves. Again, we are seeing a waxing gibbous, so it's definitely a few weeks after Claudia performed the spell. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the Magma Titan that I was speaking of earlier. If anyone had a traumatic death, it was the Titan, okay? It was just minding its business, taking a nap when a bunch of humans attacked it and carved its heart out, okay? And more moon talk, Lujane explains that it's dangerous to go into the moon nexus because the souls of the dead that have a connection will be intuitively pulled towards you, whether that connection be of love or hate. And I think that's what we could be seeing. I don't think the dead is something that Aaravos can necessarily control, so they're not like whites. The dead have just been released onto the land of the living, and they will be attracted to those whom they have a connection to. So that is why we could be seeing the Magma Titan in Katolis. It's coming for blood. These beasts from Umber Tor could be attracted to Sim, who would have been the one who killed them with thunder, although what happened was kind of unclear. And I do see this person with bat-like wings. I have no clue who that is, but it could be attracted to Anya. She's the only one that I don't know that much about. And okay, we're almost approaching the end. Are you still here, by the way? I appreciate you listening to the tangents and the purely unhinged, okay? With all my heart, I'm sending you Moonlight. But as for our last set of clips, Soren, Corvus, and Rayla are in Lux Aurea. Astrid is also there. And did anyone else notice that we didn't get any new footage of Janai, Amaya, and Kareem? Only flashbacks? I have questions, okay? And one of them is, why are they in Lux Aurea when it should be uninhabitable? And to be fair, they are in the throne room and not right beside the Sunforge, but the Sunforge is like a block away. So how are they managing to be in the city? And we do know that Moko can heal the corruption, but anything involving the Earth Primal would naturally take time, and the dead are a pretty pressing situation. So I don't think there's going to be a significant time jump within the season. Maybe at the end. I do have a theory that Amaya will die. I just feel like it has been foreshadowed in season 5, maybe even season 2, and I could be stretching it. But it's also kind of foreshadowed in Dreamer's Nightmare, where we see Amaya fall asleep beside Harrow, and that whole part of the novel felt like a simulation of Harrow's death and how Ezran takes charge in his absence. So Harrow's death is definitely foreshadowed, and I feel like Amaya could just be next on the list. And also, you can call me superstitious, but I will remind you that Janai and Amaya did not receive the blessing of the sun. Some customs actually exist for a reason. It is now written in the stars that something is gonna go wrong in their marriage. And if it's not Amaya, because I'm not gonna lie, I would kind of like it if she lived. But if it's not she who dies, then I would actually love it if it's Janai who leaves her behind. And I have so many thoughts on the Sunfire plot that I'm sitting on, but I'm just gonna wait to see how season 7 pans out to give my thoughts on the Kareem story, because I don't know, my whole argument there is that I really wish that the political intrigue was actually explored instead of only giving a nod to it, because I really feel like a powerful conversation started and then we got a bunch of nothing. So I do want the story to redeem itself and not back down from these conversations, although I realize how much of a hypocrite I'm being, because here I am. It's been like 3 months since I wrote my thoughts on the matter, but I have not shared them. So I realize that I'm not walking the talk here, but my point is just to say that I totally understand how intimidating it is to have complex conversations about political power, xenophobia, and what it actually means to be connected to your culture. It's a difficult conversation, an uncomfortable one too, and I do want to explore it, and I hope that you'll join me for it. I'm not sure when the stars are going to align for that, but I do think that the Sunfire Elf plot deserves an actual discussion. But back to where we are and what could be happening in Lux Aurea. If Janai were to die, the new Sunfire Queen would rightfully be Amaya. How would that change the dynamic within the Sunfire Elves? Would they actually stand behind the human queen that Janai gave a necklace to? Or is the usurper starting to look kind of good? That's a question, and I, for one, would like to see it, okay? That sounds like an R3 situation, though. And anyway, we don't see Callum, Ezran, or any of the Sunfire Kingdom in these clips, so I'm really curious as to what will be happening, but we do hear Corvus and Soren say that they've come this far, and there's no turning back. And this is where it gets exciting, because our heroes must be backed into a corner in the oldest fortress in all of Sadia, and this can only mean one thing, okay? It is the pit of despair, and somebody needs to be the light bringer, okay? Where is the torchbearer? Who will cast their light in this eternal darkness? That is a genuine question, and I have 3 possible answers to that. The least exciting one being Zubeia, who could show up in the last minute, just like she did in season 5. That is how Sin presumably killed the beasts in Umber Tor. Our next option is Callum, who is grappling with the question of dark magic being a necessary darkness required to save the people that he loves. There could be a spell of light or fire that he could perform that would come at a cost to him. My ongoing theory is, of course, that he'll lose a hand as a result of sun magic purifying him of dark magic corruption, but he actually needs to be corrupted first. Right now, he's only tainted, There is a Sunfire priest who is looking for an artifact to rebuild the Sunfire kingdom, and this artifact could cast the light that they need to fight the night. But I'm not going to hold my breath on introducing a new character in the show at this point. I doubt Karima's going to step up to save everybody, and he already used the Sunseed anyway. The only possible answer is to create sun magic with dark magic, and Callum has mentioned that he finds sun magic a bit scary. Fire is naturally very intense, but we know that a part of him is also drawn to it deep down. Even at the time of Umber Tor, before he chose the Moon Opal, he was debating whether he wanted a fire ruby. Either way, he could deal with dangerous sun magic, which will get him corrupted, but ultimately his efforts will supply enough light to help them survive and live another day. The last option as to who could be the Lightbringers are naturally the stars, okay? Perhaps in a moment of despair, Sadia will beg the stars to cast their light, and given the cosmic order has clearly been broken, the stars will descend from the heavens and deliver cosmic justice. And I managed to conjure up a whole season from these clips, and only time will tell where I managed to grasp the strands of light and where I was completely reaching for darkness. And to sum things up, the first third of the season will revolve around establishing a new status quo. Rayla and Callum will go their own way to the Silvergrove. Our antagonists will search for the ingredients, and at some point, Terri will defect to warn Ezran about Aaravos' plan. The dragon will get there too late. The dead will be unleashed. Ezran will begin to prepare for battle. In the second third of the season, Aaravos will be antagonizing Ezran. Backup will arrive, but they'll probably need to abandon the Katolis stronghold that will be overrun by the dead. He'll probably send Callum a crow to get him to investigate something with Akiyu. We don't know what Janai and Amaya are up to, but they will ultimately have to regroup with them at some point. The living could end up retreating to their kingdom, and in the last third of the season, tragedy could ensue, probably at the Sunfire settlement. Our remaining protagonists will be pushed back into a corrupted Lux Aurea. Their backs are going to be against the wall, making a final stand, waiting for the light after the dark. And my biggest theory that I'm rooting for currently is the possibility of seeing Laurelion. An eternal night would not be eternal if it only lasts a moon cycle. Although who knows? The situation of the undead could be the issue that will remain unsolved at the end. There is a lot of movement this season, and while I'm sure that there's gonna be a cliffhanger at the end, I'm mostly hoping to feel a sense of completion from this arc. I'd like for some things to have payoff, but I'm suspecting that Kimdale, the Nova Blade, the Key of Aaravos, and probably even Kapar are not on that list. But I think that's as deep as I'll go into my concerns though. I'm already looking forward to Arc 3. Honestly, I found that I enjoyed the trailer more the more I watched it in the process of making this video, and that is exactly what I mean when I say that first impressions aren't always the most accurate, because I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? When I first watched it, I was not very impressed. But now, I want season 7 as soon as the clock strikes midnight on December 19th, and as a matter of fact, give me 8, 9, and 10 immediately, okay? That's all to say. I really like my Laurelion theory. Definitely let me know what you're most excited to see in season 7. Okay, hold on, my cat wants love and attention. But as I was saying, I really like my Laurelion theory. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have I spent too much time gazing into the tapestries of the star weaving spiders? Definitely let me know what you're most excited to see in season 7. Did you come up with an entirely different list of theories based on the trailer? But that is all for me. If you enjoyed this video, hit the pretty like button, subscribe if you want to be a part of this beautiful moon nexus, and hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever the stars align. But until then, Tenebras post Lux.